I'm about to say something that has never ever been said before, and that is that St. Petersburg is a great city for Soviet architecture. You might be surprised about the inclusion of this rather simple building, but what I like about it is its quirkiness. Take a look at these funny little windows just here. And the main windows are pretty interesting too, not the windows themselves of course, they've been double glazed, but these boxes that protrude from them. I have never ever seen a facade like that on any Soviet building anywhere in the former Soviet Union. Most peculiar. I'm not saying for 1 second that it's in any way pretty, which of course it's not, but it wasn't supposed to be either. It's just supposed to be functional and, in this case, kind of interesting in its own way, I guess. What's interesting is, unlike the majority of the culture palaces that were built after the war, this one was built before the war in the 1930s. That's why it's got this rather constructivist style to it. So this seems like the main staircase, and that is a statue of Kirov, who is named after the ex-party boss of Leningrad who was assassinated. As usual, there's a renovation going on, so it seems a lot of the areas are closed off. Certainly retained this old school feel inside. The doors I particularly like. It's basically just made up of loads and loads of little rooms, most of which are locked up or whatever, but yeah, and it's a good 5 levels, and just the room after room is huge. They're clearly trying to modernise the place, and it's undergoing huge renovation. So good thing we've seen it while we have. Walking up this staircase isn't for the faint-hearted. Look, you get greeted by some animal heads. This place really does seem like it's got some great potential to become a really popular hangout spot for the residents of Vasily Island where it's located. Goes on around the corner as well. So I should just say, I mean, there are thousands of examples of Soviet architecture in St. Petersburg, and probably hundreds that could make a claim to be in this video. To avoid repetition from my very small number of regular viewers, I won't cover buildings that I've already covered in previous episodes. There's a kind of cool swimming pool here. I don't quite think it's going to make the final list, but worth seeing. It's really stylish, unusual. So it just shows, the high quality of buildings that, if something like that's not going to make the final cut, because that's pretty cool. Once upon a time, this building would definitely have made the list. However, it's been renovated, so can't really include it. The same applies to this building opposite. I'm guessing probably once a cinema. So yes, I think one of the most important criteria is that it has to at least still look Soviet. So it rules out a lot of really cool Soviet buildings that were once cool but have been renovated and sort of lost their character. Okay, that definitely needs a closer look. It's the St. Petersburg Sea Terminal. Now, is it just my imagination, or does it look a little bit like a boat? Okay, fans of Soviet modernism, eat your heart out. To be honest, it's rather small, or compact, but certainly practical. They've got a little exhibition on about the war in here, and it's kind of interesting because you can see quite clearly that it is possible for Russia and the West to have good relations. like during the war when they teamed up. As a seaport, this is probably the most appropriate angle to view it from. You can see there, right on the sea. It's long since been swanked up inside, but if you want to see how it looked originally, then check out the rather controversial film Into Devrochka from the late 80s, and the early part of the film is set inside the hotel. To be honest, there are a number of quite good Soviet hotels still standing in the city. I could easily have included the Leningrad St. Petersburg Hotel, or the Sovetskaya Hotel, or at a push, even the Moscow Hotel. Although it's been rather gruesomely renovated. However, I think this one is the pick of the bunch. It's got kind of a cool ramp thing as well going on. The location's pretty cool as well. Flanked by a couple of old school housing blocks. Another unusual thing is that it looks like the same from the back as it does from the front. You can't see it all because of that horrible building that we put in front of it. I should warn you, if you're a light sleeper, this hotel might not be for you. Just ride by the really busy ring road. For many years, this ensemble here, the hotel and the two long blocks, I mean that was basically the end of the island. But now, architecturally wise, now they've added all these buildings behind. And as I'm doing a video about Soviet architecture, I make no apology for focusing on the blocks flanking the hotel. I mean, look, they're pretty cool in their own right. Obviously, I mean cool by housing in the USSR standards. So I might have surprised some of you at the beginning by saying how St. Petersburg was a great city for Soviet architecture. Well, guess what? I'm going to surprise you again, because I'm going to include a garage. So it might be a little bit over the top for a garage or a car park, but I'm quite sure fans of Soviet modernism will not mind. This is just a complete bonus. I didn't know about it. I just came across it purely by chance. I'm at one of the ends of New Smolensk Embankment, and there's certainly enough here to justify its inclusion. A couple of typical Soviet jobs at the end there, but that's not the real points of interest. The real points of interest are actually either side of the little canal here. You've got 4 of these buildings which are called chicken legs buildings. So each building is standing on these little legs. Now that's by no means unique. I've seen it on some other buildings, but I mean it's certainly not common either. I think that New Smolensk Embankment has to be one of the most underrated places in the whole city. Another slightly quirky thing, just at the end of the embankment there's a square, and that's not that interesting, but the square is named after one of my favourite Soviet films that I included on the Top 10 Soviet Films video, Autumn Marathon, and that's because it was shot around this area. Well worth watching if you haven't. Now, although the chicken legs buildings are cool, I guess the piece de la resistance of New Smolensk Embankment is this really long building behind me. I believe it's the longest building in the whole city. Now, on the video I did about long buildings, I only included a photograph of it, because quite frankly, I couldn't be bothered to come all the way here to record it, because it's a long way from where I live. But I'm here now anyway, so we finally get to see it at last in all its glory. You don't notice it from the front obviously, but look, you've got a really long tunnel there. Great for a rainy day. How many cool little bonuses are you lot getting today? Oh my goodness, have you ever seen a more communist looking supermarket than that? It wasn't built as a supermarket, it's just become one in later years. But what's funny is that it was built to be something even more unlikely than a supermarket, and that is a place to sell flowers. It was called the Flower Home. So I just came through the arch to look at the building from the back and the side, and these little windows got my attention. I mean, could these things be bouquet of flowers? Or am I just reading too much into that? If you like your Soviet modernism, I mean, my goodness, you'll be hard pushed to find a better example than this, wouldn't you? It's brilliant. On the inside, it's just a normal supermarket. Well, normal apart from those things. Now, this looks interesting. It looks like a building that didn't have lifts originally, and so they just stuck some on the outside. One cool thing about just roaming the streets is that you get to see some cool stuff sometimes, purely by chance. Now this is one such example, probably from Stalin's time, and I mean, wow, what a bas-relief. Look how far it sticks out of the wall. Look at this, what I've just come across. This isn't a bad modernism job, is it? I think it's kind of cool actually, in its own way. But then again, I suppose you could say in its own way, so's that. It's not what I've come to see, but I have just come across, which is arguably the most iconic Lenin statue anywhere. The train stations in St. Petersburg were built during the Tsarist times. However, this one came much later. There's 17 of these bas-reliefs, and to be honest, they're really cool. This is a very busy train station, and I guess most people just pass in a hurry without appreciating that fine artwork, but it's really good. And what I like about it is it's low down compared to some of the buildings where it's really high up. It's low down, so anyone who wants to appreciate it can do. In between the train station and the metro station, you've got this really cool mosaic of Lenin during the revolution. The train station on the inside is nothing special really, just kind of like any other. The windows are kind of cool. I should just say, in case any of you are a bit confused, if you saw my first video of St. Petersburg when I said that people like it because there's not any Soviet architecture, I was talking just about the city centre. But once you get out the city centre, then all of a sudden you get plenty of it. There's exceptions to every rules, and actually we're still quite central, but guess what? We've got this. That's the Hotel Russia. It looks better from a distance because close up you can see all the modern tiling. But anyway, it's not as cool as the Pribaltiskaya that we've already covered, so won't worry about that. However, behind is Park Pobedy, Victory Park. So it was 1953, so shortly after the war, when this area was being built up. And basically they needed a big park for all the people that are going to come to live here, so they obviously said to the workers, well, it's going to be your park, so help out and build it. Incidentally, in the Soviet times there was a tradition of every April on a Saturday for all the residents to come out and make their city look nice, and as you can see, that tradition is still going on today. Lots of people coming out trying to make the park nice for the summer, and particularly ahead of the May Day celebrations. I wouldn't have thought there's too many parks anywhere in the world that have got their own metro station. So obviously this is parks in honour of the victory in the war. Plenty of statues to the participants. I don't know if you can quite see the inscription at the back, but sometimes you learn a lot from them, and here we learn 3 different things. So we learn the sculptor, who's Manazer, who done quite a few of the Lenin statues, and then here we learn about the factory as well, which was the Monument sculpture factory, and then also we get the year as well, 1951. You see here a photo of the time people helped to build their park. I say people, I mean you see mostly women, because of course most of the men died in the war. The workers would work hard all week, and on a Sunday, their day of rest, they'd come to the park and relax. A statue here to the commander of the Red Army. And I'm surprised you don't see more statues to him in a way, but I think one reason for that is because he kind of fell from grace after the war as a result of just being too powerful. Is it just me who thinks that architecturally everything seems to look better in the 60s than it does now? There's a nice little sculpture actually. See the mother there helping her daughter put on the young pioneer's scarf. That's quite a block as well behind it. You see these Starlinkers alongside the park, I mean, you know, they are highly prestigious places to live. And as you can see here, the goalkeeper of the Zenit and of the USSR lived here for many, many decades. So yeah, being the best goalkeeper in the whole of the USSR, that gets you a nice flat overlooking Park Pobedy. As we mentioned before, the Stalinist architecture is all about the details. I should just say, for those who have noticed the disproportionately high amount of Soviet modernism in this video, architecture from the 60s and 70s, there's a reason for that. Basically, St. Petersburg just has better examples of modernism than it does Stalinist Empire style or even Constructivism. So that's the main reason. It's not just because it's my favourite type. For anyone interested in Soviet architecture, especially from Stalin's period, then Moskovski Ploshad or Moscow Square is an absolute must. That's as good a Lenin statue as you'll see anywhere. And this House of Soviets building behind is fantastic. Both sides of the Lenin statue, you've got these huge fountains that in the summer shoot up water. It looks quite impressive with the water shooting up, and then the building in the background there. Although the square is a concrete square, it's flanked by 2 green squares. This area was developed after the war, and you've got these imposing Stalinist housing blocks, which would have been highly desirable places to live, and probably still are. It's huge, it's monumental, it's imposing, it's everything you'd expect from Stalinist architecture. In addition to the 2 huge fountains I mentioned a second ago, I mean, they've got 3 more. I mean, how can you have so many fountains on one square? The building itself is stylish, but really, I mean, it's that huge bas-relief that goes across the top. That's what's really cool. Now, bearing in mind these things are so high up, the attention to detail is incredible. Each one of those statues is, I think I'm right in saying, 4 meters high. Because it's so high up, you wouldn't notice it if it wasn't. Look at that imposing main entrance in keeping with the rest of the building. We've got the hammers and sickles either side, and presumably in the middle there was once some kind of artwork, perhaps with Stalin, which has since been rubbed out. And take a look at the huge arched back of the building as well. So as with the park, this square also has its own metro station just down there. And yes, despite the fact it's almost May, it is actually snowing. Actually, it's quite useful that it's snowing now, because when we looked at the house 10 minutes ago, it was a bit sunny, so we couldn't see it so well. But being St. Petersburg can go from sunny to snowing in 10 minutes. We're approaching the last building now, and I think it's a case of saving the best till last. I mean, as iconic buildings go, wow, it doesn't get much better than this. I mean, it's certainly not pretty, like most of the buildings arguably on this video, but it's a bit like a Sphinx cat. You know, it's ugly, but you can still love it. You can see how far the building goes back. There's a very nice forest nearby, and that's not a coincidence. This was the place where top scientists were going to work, and to attract them, it had to be a nice working environment. Although it's the tower that, of course, takes most of the attention, there's some other interesting aspects to the building as well, not least this thing. Now, this building would have been planned during the height of the space race, and I'm just wondering whether that's supposed to be a launching pad, and that's meant to be like a spaceship about to take off, or I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, but I'm wondering if that is actually what was in the mind of the planners. And also, I mean, lengthwise, it's pretty long as well. In terms of both quality and quantity, it could be argued that St. Petersburg, against all odds, is the best city anywhere for Soviet or Socialist architecture.